Factors that influence climate. When you are talking about day-to-day events of what is happening with temperature or precipitation outside, that is referred to as weather. Weather is the condition of the atmosphere at a particular place and time. Climate, on the other hand, refers to the average year after year conditions of temperature, precipitation, winds, and clouds in the area. There are two main factors that determine the climate of a region: temperature and precipitation. The same factors that affect climate regions also affect little small areas. Microclimates are small areas with climate conditions that differ from those of the area around them. This would be, for example, like a small park that is found in the middle of a huge sprawling skyscraper city. Now, main factors that influence temperature are latitude, altitude, and distance from large bodies of water. Now recall that latitude is a measure of distance north or south of the equator, and based on latitude, Earth's surface can be divided into three temperature zones as seen in this image: the tropical zone, polar zones, and temperate zones. The tropical zone is the area near the equator between about 23.5 degrees north latitude and 23.5 degrees south latitude. It has a warm climate because it receives direct sunlight all year. The polar zones extend from about 66.5 degrees to 90 degrees north and 66.5 degrees to 90 degrees south latitudes. They have cold climates because the sun strikes the ground at a lower angle. And then there are the temperate zones, which are in between the tropical and polar zones from about 23.5 degrees to 66.5 degrees north, and of course 23.5 degrees to 66.5 degrees south latitudes. They have weather that range from warm in the summer to cold in the winter. Altitude is an important climate factor because air temperature decreases as altitude increases. Large bodies of water influence temperatures because water heats up and cools down more slowly than land. Oceans and lakes can also affect temperatures. Oceans greatly moderate the temperatures of nearby land. Water heats up more slowly than land and also cools down more slowly. Therefore, winds from the ocean keep coastal regions from reaching extremes of hot and cold. Marine climates have relatively warm winters and cool summers. These include much of the west coast of North America, South America, and Europe. The centers of North America and Asia are too far inland to be warmed or cooled by the ocean, so most of Canada and Russia, as well as the central United States, have continental climates. Continental climates occur inland areas and are often characterized by cold winters and warm or hot summers. Many marine climates are influenced by ocean currents, which are streams of water within the oceans that move in regular patterns. In general, warm ocean currents carry warm water from the tropics towards the poles, and cold currents bring cold water from the polar zones toward the equator. The surface of the water warms or cools the air above it, so when a warm current brings warm air to the land it touches, and cold currents bring cool air to the land it touches. There are factors that affect precipitation, and these include prevailing winds, the presence of mountains, and seasonal winds. As you have already learned, weather patterns depend on the movement of huge air masses, and air masses can be warm or cool, or dry and humid. Now, when air masses move from place to place by prevailing winds, depending on the amount of water vapor in that air mass will depend how much rain or snow will fall when that air mass lands. A mountain range in the path of prevailing winds influences where precipitation falls. Winds are forced to rise and pass over the mountains. When the rising warm air cools and its water vapor condenses, it will fall as rain or snow on the windward side of the mountain, which is the side of the oncoming wind. The land on the leeward or downward side of the mountain receives very little precipitation. Sea and land breezes over large regions can also change direction with the seasons, and these are called monsoons. Most places on Earth have seasons, and seasons are caused by the tilt of Earth's axis. This is as Earth travels around the sun. The seasons change as the amount of energy each hemisphere receives from the sun changes. Now, so for example, in June, the north end of Earth's axis is tilted toward the sun, so this is when the northern hemisphere receives more energy, and this is what the northern hemisphere feels as summer. Since the southern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun, they would then be having winter. The opposite is true when the southern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun. And then twice during the year, in March and September, neither end of Earth's axis is tilted toward the sun, and at both these times, one hemisphere has spring while the other has autumn. All right, let's take a break here and show what you know.